Welcome to our panel discussion. It's how craft becomes luxury. We wanted to create this panel discussion because we have experts from very different backgrounds. Not necessarily the jewelry industry, because we thought we would like to see some different perspectives also for the luxury market. So our first guest is Covi. She is the head of interior design of Mini, so welcome. And also industrial designer background, and has a long career in the design. So we hope to hear from your perspective, from the design perspective. Then we have Maximilian Hurler. He's entrepreneur and also real estate developer. And we would like to hear his perspective on from the real estate development side, how luxury is in his world or from his world. And then we have Florian Wupperfeld, who is a placemaker, I would say, who has a agency called Leading Cultural Destinations. And he brings together cultural institutions and also does a lot of research for placemaking in also the real estate department. Also was one of the first, you did the marketing for Soho House, is that correct? And I guess everybody knows this. And yeah, so the first question, I would say, what is luxury today? Yeah, how do we define it? And Jess, I'll probably start with you. How do you define for you, or from a design perspective? Not so much from the car, we get to that, but from your personal perspective.
Thank you. Well, I think luxury, we had a brief conversation earlier, but also when you approached me for this panel talk, I was thinking all the time, what is luxury at the end of the day? And to be honest, it is not so much about products anymore. It's more about what floats with it. And is it an experience? Is it just time and space you have? Everybody is rushing, everybody's in a hurry. Work is hard, life is hard. And luxury is something that makes your everyday a little bit special. And I think you can totally scale it from just having a few minutes in your car to actually having a luxurious vacation where you're catered to your every need. But it's more about that you can really do and have the freedom to live the life you want with the things you need. And sometimes it's nice things too.
So thank you. So luxury is kind of a freedom to live your life. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Florian, we've been talking before this talk about, and you said, in the old days or in the past, there was more about quality and service, the luxury, the definition of luxury. And today it's more like a label or a narrative. And you think it's become a commodity, luxury?
But for sure, it's become a commodity. So I think luxury used to be more, as you said, more like a sense of quality or service. Luxury has become very much around a product and kind of something you can brag about. But I think, with the big conglomerates, with LVMH and stuff like this, I think luxury is a little bit in a crisis because people, I think, they start to realize that what is luxury really? It's not just a product, and luxury is something you need to earn and something which has a certain depth. And luxury today is very kind of fast, and it's being sold to you. But I think luxury used to be something which you need to get access to. So the entire dynamic has changed, and therefore the word luxury in itself is a little bit in a crisis.
Yeah, and we had 2 days ago, we had Alain Charmer from Matter of Form as a panel, and he said luxury is actually not really a word we should use anymore, because what is that? It's become too whitewashed in a sense. Maximilian, we were talking about luxury and what is that for you, and you mentioned to me that it is time. So, is luxury for you maybe also because you create places, you build city quarters. Maximilian has built the Schwabinger Tor here in Munich. I don't know if people know this place. It has several offices, places, apartments, and a hotel, many restaurants. So it's really creating a a living space in a city from scratch, which is, I think, highly interesting. But I just wanted to ask you about the time question. Is luxury for you that it's slow living or slowness, if you know what I mean, like calming down? Is that luxury from you, or how would you define it?
First of all, let me just add, I was fortunate enough to be part of a great team who did this development that you just mentioned, and it wasn't just me, but I could, I was happy to contribute my part of it. Yes, I would say luxury is time, because when you think of luxury, you think of something valuable, and I can think of much more valuable than time. You can buy it back, and sort of time is an enemy for all of us. Life is limited, so I think it's luxurious to say that I do make or did make the best out of the time that I had.
Okay, and so you create spaces where people spend time, right? Is there, because your developments go also in the luxury direction, is there any like mantra you have for the buildings you build with that in mind, with the luxury in mind and slowness or time?
Yeah, the mantra that we had when we started developing, and that we still have now that we're operating, was we create spaces where people are able to make the best out of their time, and that there are many layers to that mantra. Meaning, what for example we develop is super mixed use. And so there are thoughts of this 5-minute walkable city that you don't have to travel from where you live to where you work, to where you spend your spare time. So that definitely is of essence. The word luxury, when we started developing, was actually sort of we didn't like that word. We didn't want to be a luxury real estate developer. We wanted to build something for the people that doesn't exclude anyone through sort of limited access and stuff. And we wanted to build places where you can, come, spend time, be who you are, and be free.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Maybe that brings me then to Florian. Because creating such a space needs to be somewhat curated to give a certain quality of life, I guess, which can be then seen as a certain luxury. So, what would you think that creating a space to create a luxurious, I hate the word now, to say quality of life, a valuable place to live, let's say, put it this way.
I think, luxury has also I think you have to look at luxury like in a regional perspective. So I think luxury, we have maybe a different perception of luxury here than what they have, for example, in Asia or in emerging markets. So luxury, first of all. Second of all, I think if you would do real estate development, when we talk about luxury, I think it's more about the cultural context, for example. So I think like a Nobu residences, or, when we talk about branded real estate, nobody would really live in a Fendi house here in Germany, really. But I think, culture has kind of that kind of element of luxury because it has more kind of narrative. I think Fendi, for example, works very well in Dubai or in Asia. So I think the luxury term needs to be seen in a kind of regional context. And I think in real estate development, I think luxury is... I think that it's a label which I think works in emerging markets most likely better than here, because when you tell people in real estate we do luxury, people think you're overcharging, and it's more about kind of, I think, a certain quality level, I think, and so therefore I think luxury real estate development in Germany, I think, is more, I would say, is rather tricky.
Now a quick jump, since we're on a jewelry fair, because giving luxury just what do you think if in on this design perspectives, how do you design luxury in a sense, because you had design of interior design? Is there, you also design almost kind of jewelry, I guess, because of the I say the watches in the car and stuff like that. Obviously, Mini ain't Maybach. That's clear, but still somewhat of my personal perception somehow yet luxurious. So, is there anything you can add to that?
Thank you. Well, the fun part with Mini is that there is such a beautiful, strong, passionate following of the brand. So that is, on the one hand side, really, I feel honored to be able to design for that, but it also is a real challenge between like designing for the future, but still celebrating the history. And designing for spaces, I think, is something very exciting, because you always, and it is, I think, also similar to some hospitality aspects or architectural aspects, it is still a space, and everything is somehow parallel to if you walk into a restaurant. You come into the car, you open the door, what do you smell? What is the lighting? You sit down. You have the same thing in a restaurant where you come in, you're being greeted. How are you being greeted in a restaurant? How are you being greeted in the car? Also, how does the seat feel? How are the ergonomics? And every little detail, from like silverware into up to buttons, or like the visuals, are a really beautifully but also very detailed orchestration of every piece of design. And so designing for a Mini or for a luxurious experience, I think it always needs some iconic moments. So like you have this amazing scent of the kitchen, or this beautiful lighting that cocoons you, or this seat that also just like wraps you and like makes you feel safe. But it doesn't mean that everything has to be on the same level of luxury. You have some icons, some jewelry icons, like the buttons or the toggles or the steering wheel. And so I think this what's Auseinandersetzung in English? This discourse with all like in different disciplines like light, geometry, materials, is the challenge, but also the exciting part of designing for a Mini.
So it's kind of you're designing for experience also, and we've discussed this because what is luxury today? Is it objects? Is it cars? Is it jewelry? Or is it experience? And I would say probably in the younger generations, luxury is definitely experiencing and or experiences. So I think that's why we're all sitting here also, because we are all in the experience design business one way or another, whether you create cars or apartments or buildings or hospitality. So how do you design for experience, Florian?
No, I think what Max said before, I think time is a very important driver from luxury perspective. So because in real estate, if you have a place where you basically win time by living there, because maybe the logistics are easy, because you're close to culture, you're in nature, but you're still in the city where it's vibrant, that's actually a real luxury. Luxury also is like the social context, that you're with people who are like-minded people you feel like you admire, people like you, where you feel like safe, where you kind of want to be associated with like-minded people. And then the other thing, I think, is what's really coming more and more is the nature part. Because on the one hand, we want to live in cities, but at the same time, we want to see the sea, or we want to be in a forest, or we actually go even further, not kind of a plastic tree, which we used to have sometimes on roofs, but actually to be in a farm. I mean, in Munich, for example, Tucher Park, what they're doing right now is they call it the first inner city greenfield living. So that you actually live inside the city, but you actually live in a park. And that's luxury, that you are in 3 minutes in the middle of the city, but at the same time, when you look out your window, you're in a huge park. And I think if you composite these different pieces together, then you create something which is luxurious, because to be in the middle of a park, in the middle of a city, I mean, New York, everybody knows if you live right on Central Park, that's luxury. And that's that contradiction. Very often I think luxury is all about kind of creating these contradictions which then really create another level of value.
Mm-hmm. And coming back to value, and you say living in Central Park or something like that. So there's also the social luxury. And Maximilian, I would like to ask you, because we were talking before about creating environment for all social aspects. You know, so you do not exclude anyone. Could you maybe elaborate on that a little bit, and how you say curate? This is a word which always comes to my mind, because I know it's developing, but it's also curating a space, and and how you curate, say, social luxury.
Well, the area that we developed is north of, or is still part of, Schwabing, a generally vibrant, lively neighborhood, but it was just on the north, on the edge. Nobody ever went there. So we had to, of course, prolong the vibrant part and really respected and cherished all the lively and the hotspot of Schwabing, and tried to expand it to the north. That could have never worked if we included there some sort of member club. Nothing wrong with member clubs, but that would never have worked there. So we came up with concepts. And how do you come up with concepts? We needed partners who believed in the site and who believed in this project. Restaurant operators, hotel operators, retail stores. Even when health is probably a topic that, and longevity. I mean, it's probably overdone a lot, overheard, but is still a big trend. And so we had partners who became our tenants, or we joint ventured with them, and we brought it to life. And we did not exclude anyone from the beginning in this project. So regarding age or financial status or whatever, it was from the beginning on. It was, as I believe, highly inclusive. Even the word, so the hotel is operated by Hyatt, but their lifestyle brand is called Andas, and Andas is a Hindu name, and it stands for personal style. So again, it's be yourself.
And so it sounds to me that you created value, as an outcome, and that is sort of luxury in itself, right? So you created a valuable place to live, where you offer many different, parts of life, and say, like sports or restaurants and stuff like that. But it's also taking a great risk, right? I mean, there must be a great level of trust from other partners, like restaurant owners or hotel operators and stuff like that, right?
I did not know that, how risky that business was when I started. I kind of fell in love with the job, and it was also, as I said, we had a great team, and timing was of essence at that time. It was a bit anti-cyclical to the market. If we started the whole project now, the sort of environment would be totally different. But one thing I wanted to add, as I mentioned, time, it's also all about, of course, the relationships, and the sort of platform that we offered is now being adopted, cherished, as you want to call it, by so many people who meet there. And so it sort of became a hotspot, I would say. And that is actually the highest value that I personally get out of it. So when I drive past it on Leopoldstraße, it's not about like, oh, look at the buildings that have been built, but see the bus, see the people, see what's going on, what's happening here. Yeah, this is a higher value than, oh, look what you've built.
Yeah, absolutely. So to me, it sounds like community is also a new luxury in that sense. Building communities. I mean, I think it's a little bit overused, that word, building communities, but it's actually more important than ever. Looking at the world today, I believe. And coming back to time, Jess, your family also has a wonderful hotel in Austria, right? Which is somewhere in the mountains, and people can spend time there. It's very secluded, right? And I just wanted to ask you, is that also a form of luxury? Although this is not a luxury hotel as such, but yeah, maybe you can elaborate on this one.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we have this old hotel in the Alps, and it's in Schnitztal. No Austrian knows where it is because it's so small. And the interesting part is, and I think that ties back to like what we talked about, what luxury is. It's not about the bling. It's about community, but it's also how people feel seen, and it's how we treat people. I don't know if you know the book by Will Guerra, Unreasonable Hospitality, and I think I would recommend this book to everybody because it's also about leadership in a sense, but also about creating. And it's, I think, like a really beautiful book about how do you create a space where people feel special, no matter who they are. And I think, like, being in the design industry, but also running this family place is really interesting because at the end of the day, everybody just wants to feel seen and heard. And it doesn't matter if you're a customer who wants to buy a car and wants to customize it the way they want, or if you're a guest who's in the middle of the mountain, in the middle of nowhere, and they can get a Vespa Martini, and we know how it's made. And we have guests that are from Germany, but we also have guests from New York who come on a regular basis because it's something really a little weird and random. Our friends say it's a mix between the Hotel of the Shining and the Grand Hotel Budapest. We also have twins, so it's interesting. But it's that thing where it's a little underdog. It's not super accessible, but also if you're there, you feel seen. And I think that's something that also caters to luxury, where anybody can feel taken care of, no matter is it design, is it hospitality or architecture.
So unreasonable hospitality.
Yes, I'll send you.
All right, so that sounds very interesting. I think you can draw a bridge here also to now the jewelry industry creating spaces where everybody feels special, because I think that's is something we've been thinking about, especially about placemaking and also designing for experiences. And if we look at the normal jeweler or the general jeweler, I believe, this is my personal opinion, okay? So we see a lot the same, and we see a lot of places which probably kind of don't quite make that to really make you feel special and stuff. So maybe you can also again elaborate on how to design perhaps for being felt special.
Well, I think especially as a jeweler, we have Lisa Grabner here, who is like a very talented jeweler. And I think what makes her work special, for example, is that she just sits with the customers. And her patience is the value, because she just knows what the customers want by the end of the day, because she just listens. And I think creating and making somebody feel special is you take the time, but you show it. You show sketches, you show materials, you show like this Unreasonable Hospitality book. One example, like it inspired me so much that we had one guest, there was a daughter with them. She was like 4 or 5 and had her doll. And the daughter said to me, also Wiener Schnitzel for the doll. And I'm like, sure. And we gave her a small plate with a Wiener Schnitzel for the doll. And of course, we didn't charge anything, but like it's about these small moments to go like this extra mile that's absolutely unreasonable. Like it's silly, but it shows like just go the extra mile. It's like 5% extra worth of your time, but it's like 100% extra valuable for those people because they feel heard and feel seen. And you show them that you listened. And I think no matter if you design, you take customer feedback from some car clinic and say, oh, those buttons, we have to change them. It's like, how do we make people feel seen and heard? And then apply it also, like take it seriously.
Super interesting. So it's also more about emotions, right? I mean, this is about feeling. We just had a talk before because I made an art piece where you can, with a brainwave sensor, read out the emotions with an AI algorithm, and it's it's a bit insane. But that only on the side. Craftsmanship, since the theme of this whole trade show is craftsmanship, also of the talks here, Maximilian, I would like to ask you, obviously you deal with many craftsmen and the craftsmanship in various facets. And so when you think that craftsmanship becomes an experience, you know, how to use craftsmanship so it becomes an experience, if you know what I mean.
So I believe great quality always endures, and in craftsmanship you really sense that. In a luxury context, if you, as you mentioned, if you see how something is produced and created, and you have the feeling that this is particularly created for me, that is definitely something great, something awesome. Of course, when you do sort of real estate developments on a big scale, you cannot just work with craftsmen. But what you can do is sort of look at the history of the city where you are. And for example, here we're in Munich, and you look at the architecture of the Leo von Klenze architecture and Friedrich von Gärtner architecture, or even modern architecture, and you try to not copy that, but to transform that at a high quality standard. So, I think quality and great service. I also read that book. I find it fascinating, especially because there's always a surprise to it, something that you didn't expect, and I hope we can also deliver that at the spaces that we did. But regarding craftsmen, it doesn't need, the whole thing doesn't need to be one craftsmanship product. But if you cherish craftsmanship, which we do, for example, we have, you allow me this little advertisement, we have a craft brewery on spot there, because we say our neighborhood Schwabing has earned its own brewery. So we brew 100% bio-organic German Reinheitsgebot beer, and sell that and offer that to our customers, and they love it, and they love the experience, and they even book hotel rooms and their conventions at the hotel, because we offer special brewery courses for companies that come to us. We even grow our own hops on the roof. We also produce honey and stuff like that. So these are little craft, if you will, anecdotes compared to the whole project, but they make it better, and they really make it livable, and that's what people talk about, actually.
Well, I would definitely say it's luxurious to have your own brewery, especially in Munich. But no, I think this is actually, we talked about this before, and I did not know, and I think it's amazing because to offer something special like that, our own brewery is of course bigger than a small service, but which goes can also go almost the same way. But I just wanted to go to the quality, and you said endurance, Maximilian. And actually I wanted to ask Florian about, you mentioned before like Fendi houses and stuff like that. You know, these are obviously luxurious brands or luxury brands, and I think even Mercedes and the car brands start building all this house. What is your opinion on that? I'm a little bit not sure what that is supposed to be and where is, this is for me like the highest form of materialism. And we've been talking about that luxury is really about emotion. It's all about more service, and it's not too much about things. But then there obviously is a big trend going in the Middle East towards this. So what should we make out of this?
There's two things. I mean, what Jess also said, and Max, is like, I think, we talk a lot about curation, because whatever you do, it's about kind of curating, whether it's a product, it's a service, it's a place, whatever it is, it needs to have curation, because it needs, like, how do you being led into the product, into the experience, how do you then tell and share the value, where do you create the value, and then if all of this goes well, maybe it ends up with luxury, and it's not the other way around. A lot of times I see people talking about luxury in the beginning, but then everything else in the back falls apart. So I think it's all about this curation. And I think a big thing right now in real estate is branded residences, where big luxury brands, whether it's Armani and Missoni and Fendi, are basically branching out of their kind of couture or jewelry, baccarat, out of their kind of traditional product world into kind of a new kind of segment, which is real estate. And it gives you a sense of kind of, understanding of like, if it's just an address like 461, whatever, Broadway, doesn't mean anything if you live in the Fendi building. It has a ring to it. The question here, though, is the same thing. When you live in the Fendi building, what does that actually mean? Is this just a logo on the building, or is there like a Fendi story behind it? Because Fendi was about craftsmanship. Armani has different values. Missoni is about the fabrics. If you live in the Porsche Tower, it needs to be something about car performance, speed, something like this. So the question really is, just to put your brand on the door doesn't make it luxury, I think, at all. I think it needs to be filled with life, that those values, again, curation, kind of come to life, that this branded building, which is then whatever it is, Fendi or could be also car brand, actually comes to life. And that journey then actually becomes a luxury product. And it's a huge thing in the emerging markets. I don't see something similar happening in Europe. A little bit in Spain is happening there, because, with Nobu and that kind of thing. But I think in Germany with branded real estate, I could see cultural brands being branded real estate. So like, for example, if you live in the Haus der Kunst, Maison Haus der Kunst or something like this, I can imagine that, because people like to be in the cultural context. I think even in New York they have MoMA residences. So I can see that. I don't know if anybody wants to live here in an Armani Tower. Max, do you see anybody that wants to live in an Armani Tower in Munich? Not really. No, I agree. But it's a huge market, especially Asia and the Middle East. Now the German car brands, I mean, we have a car person here. They need to find new ways to make money, and maybe real estate is a way to kind of branch out their brand, to make money with the brand, and also maybe to add another aspect of experience, because if you only experience the car in the car or the product in the car, but actually you can experience it now in your life with buildings, it is another touch point where you actually build brand equity, and I think it could be interesting.
But is it not that you reinvent yourself as a car brand, for example, and then doesn't it dilute your brand value in a sense? I mean, I'm just asking myself.
It depends. I mean, the Porsche Tower in Miami supposedly is sinking, so it looks like that the people need to move out, and that's actually bad for the brand, obviously, because Porsche stands for a certain level of quality, and now the building is falling apart. So I think it can go both ways. Like I think Porsche is a brand which everybody associates in a car world, but I think, for example, Mini could be a good, like maybe as a hotel brand or something like this. I don't know, but Mini could work.
Well, I think especially with design, I think design is always exposed as fluff if there's no function behind it. So if you just make a car house and it's just fancy, and there's no functionality behind it, I think like maybe the Porsche Tower, I don't know it, but I think then maybe it gets tricky. But I think with the car brands, or like with Mini, for example, there's so much functionality behind it. It's an urban car brand. There's like charging, there's parking, there's like a community. So there's absolutely spaces where it could make sense. I totally agree, and where it could strengthen the brand. But I also think it's like absolutely a fine line, and probably goes with any design brand. Like, how do you position it? Is it just like a nice surface thing because everybody's doing it, or is it something where you can actually give more value to your customers? For example, like I really love what you've been doing at Schwabinger Tor, because it gives you more life quality because of like dry cleaning is there, like there are restaurants, you have your like little space in the city. But I think there needs to be a lot of like function and value added to that. And so, yeah, it's definitely interesting.
I have to take something back. If you put a high-end whatever brand tower in Munich, residential tower, I think if you put any residential property in Munich on the market, you can lease it, because the market, unfortunately, is so scarce. You wouldn't need to, but it would eventually sell, and it would be a good thing because it would take the pressure out of the market. Also, you have brands that you may think can do that are, Google, Apple, all the tech, Microsoft, all the tech companies that sort of chose Munich over Berlin, for example, which is fascinating. So there I could theoretically see that, because people who work for these companies, they come to Munich specifically for this job. Why not? And it would help the market, but it's not something that I personally, branded real estate, that I have a lot of aspiration for. I find it interesting though, because when we started developing our project or projects, the real estate people that I know, we always looked at the fashion industry and the luxury in whatever, you name it, cars, fashion, music, entertainment, film, whatever, to see how people live and what their wants and needs are, and then create sort of a framework for human activities. That's what real estate essentially is. That's frameworks for human activities. And now we're being partly asked, oh, how can sort of this luxury brand be sort of look at the real estate world and be inspired by it? It's actually the other way that. No.
Yeah, it inspires itself. But I can hear sort of that you need a sort of cultural relevance, whatever you do as a brand. I mean, in the end, that's probably the way where luxury is definitely going. So maybe a closing question to all of you. So how could jewelry become more culturally relevant, which it already is, of course, but in a perspective of the future of luxury, and where could we head down in this direction?
Well, look, if you look, I come to jewelry in a second. If you look at the art market right now, so the art market was extremely hot. Art Basel, all of these different art fairs. Now, I think the art market is cooling off a little bit because people are starting to realize that, it's a commodity play. And that, it's not so much about kind of what the artist has thought, but it's about kind of moving money. And I think, so culture is something else. Culture is more context, and culture is much more, it's a value system. And I think for brands, especially in the jewelry business, who want to have kind of a luxury trajectory for the brand, I think this kind of cultural context is very important, because it's not just about the product in itself, but it's about the halo effect all around it, how it was made, who are you affecting with, in which context do you put it. And I think it's not just about the product, it's about the curation of that ecosystem of what comes with the product. I think this is where the value is for jewelry.
Well, I think I love that you put together like the culture and jewelry aspect from like the context, because I feel, especially, I heard you talk about AI before and new technologies, and what I find really fascinating as a designer is how new technologies help us create. But at the same time, I think craftsmanship, especially if it's this topic, is something that is so ingrained in culture. And it doesn't matter if it's European culture, South American culture, American. There's so many different ways of manufacturing and crafting different products. And I think that friction between traditional craftsmanship, but also contemporary technology, and bringing those aspects together in jewelry design, and like making jewelry design interesting again and very unique, because you see so many products in this world, and it's sometimes hard to tell them apart, because it's very, I heard a word today, it's a consumic. It's my new favorite word. It's when something looks nice, but it's not quite interesting. And so to get away from this consumic, danke Barbara, and make something where it is new, but it's made with traditional ways of working, I think that could be something interesting moving forward, and like really pushing design into another level, and like also helping you differentiate yourself from like a very authentic perspective.
So I'm not the best of giving advice on the jewelry business, but as we work with real estate and therefore also with the stuff that happens there, for example, the hospitality world, which always is also associated with luxury. What I see is a lot of individualism and personalization. Goes back to what you said about this unreasonable hospitality, but trips are being personally curated for people. And I can imagine that in other industries, this sort of, oh, we have the chef's table tonight, something is especially produced and presented to us, not to a mass market, but to us, and there's something individual to it. I can imagine is inspiring for many industries.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, so to sum it up, I think the new luxury is just a stupid word, but it's definitely going towards more experience, more value, more service, and more listening to people. And that's what we want to do now too. We would like to open the discussion to the audience. If there's any questions, yes, please, if you have any questions. Is there any questions? Okay, then I think we're done. Thank you so much for coming, and yeah, thank you for being here, and yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. Give it up for.